All right, so hey, it's a Tuesday, November 17th. Mark with MyRadar, the operation manager, and today we have our special guest, Dr. Stefan. Golly, I'm going to get it wrong all day long, but Dr. Stefan Bieda from the National Weather Service office in Amarillo, and forecaster Randy Bowers from Amarillo office as well. Thanks for joining us, guys. We have Chris Sander from Tornado Titans jumping in here.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you guys taking time. So last night, obviously we're just talking about a little bit crazy night for you guys. If you could go ahead and kind of tell me what happened in your immediate area. The reason I got a hold of you guys is because you had a lot of activity right there in the Amarillo area.
I'll go ahead and jump in and answer that. So we had that upper level low that ejected out of the desert southwest, pushed a dry line and a cold front through our region yesterday afternoon and evening. Mm-hmm. Initially, a lot of the storm formation occurred along the dry line boundary that's set up along the I-27 corridor. And a lot of those storms are moving rapidly off to the northeast at about 45 to 50 miles an hour. As soon as some of those storms started coming into, say, right around the canyon area of Texas, southeast and south of Amarillo, those storms started to exhibit rotation characteristics and then became strongly rotational once we hit the Palo Duro Canyon area. And a lot of those storms then became supercell type storms. They ended up going through cyclic rotation cycles. Some of the tornadoes that we noted stayed on the ground for 1 or 2 hours at a time. Some of the tornadoes, we counted up to 8 tracks so far on those tornadoes that did occur in our county warning area. We had 2 tornadoes go through the Pampa area. I can confirm at this time that one of the tornadoes, the second one that struck the Pampa area, was an EF3 tornado. That tornado ended up destroying the Halliburton plant on the east side of Pampa, Texas, and continued to proceed towards the northeast. The image that was just recently shown there was actually an image that came out from just north of the Palo Duro Canyon area, and then that's the damage that occurred in Pampa, Texas. We currently have damage survey teams surveying the first track of the tornado. Hopefully we'll have further information on the EF rating for that one here this afternoon. We also
you're right. Actually, I grabbed this last night when that tornado was going through the Pampa area. We're actually releasing a new product on our end of the app where we can have a per station radar. So that's what I believe this is your station. I was looking at last night when it came through there. Pretty impressive looking on the radar anyway.
Indeed it was. And we can also confirm that there was one EF1 tornado touchdown in Ochiltree County that occurred last night. So we do have confirmation of 2 tornadoes so far, and our damage survey teams continue to assess the remaining tracks that are in our area. If you wanted the further perspective on the warning decisions that took place last night, I can pass it over to Randy Bowers.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. It was initially when the thunderstorms were east, kind of in the Palo Duro Canyon area, moving northeast, they began to develop a supercell characteristic similar to what Dr. Bieda was talking about. As they moved northeast, really about the time we got into about the 6 o'clock time frame, when they crossed I-40, the rotation became much stronger and persistent. That's when we started getting the reports. We were issuing the tornado warnings at that point, and they continued to move northeast. So the one thing that was notable about this event was how persistent the very strong rotation was, and a very clear signal on radar that there was a tornado ongoing at the time before it even got to Pampa. So we were able to really ramp up that wording in the text of the warnings. If you go back and look at that, we were able to really ramp that up. In addition to the information we were getting from the storm spotters and storm chasers, we were able to really communicate the seriousness of the threat that was headed for the Pampa area for both the first tornado and the second tornado, because both had several reports of it being a large tornado. There was a debris signature on radar that was persistent, very persistent. Yeah. And it was very good confidence to really ramp up the warnings. And even after it passed at Pampa and went up towards the Miami area and continued northeast in the Panhandle.
Now, is this kind of a historic event for you guys in that area? Or I know that Dr. Bieda and I spoke about that a little bit earlier about you had looked into, if something like this had ever happened in November for you or in that media area.
Yeah, we did look back into our records. So the last time that we had a tornado that occurred in the month of November was a single event that occurred in November of 1975. So that puts into perspective the severity of the outbreak that did occur in our area, because we are looking at least 8 tornadoes in our area. Mm-hmm. The last time that we had a late season or out of season outbreak occurred in December 14th of 2012, and that's those tornadoes occurred in a town called Clarendon, just east of the Amarillo area. And again, when we look at something like this and we see the amount of damage that has been done, normally to many residents in our area, they normally only expect to see this for April or May, rather than thinking that a November outbreak can occur. It is not unusual that you can have severe thunderstorms in the month of November, but it indeed, in this case, the fact that we had so many tornadoes is considered somewhat unprecedented. Thankfully, as a result of everything that we've been doing so far today, we have not heard of any injuries or any fatalities so far. And that's a saving grace considering everything that occurred.
So did you guys high-five each other up before we went on camera? Oh, yeah.
We high-fived each other last night. I mean, we are very proud of the mission that we were able to accomplish last night.
Definitely, because yesterday was such an impressive setup in the long run. Starting the day, and I know Chris can kind of talk a little bit about this, but starting the day, we were having a lot of internal conversation about, is it going to be really good or not? And Chris is like, I'm not going to go chase, and, all that. And then it just, it really did. It just kind of went a little crazy.
Working the forecast us leading up to that, it was it was one of those things where we knew there was certainly a possibility that it could happen. The ingredients were there. We didn't know exactly how everything would come together, how much cloud cover we'd have in the morning, just a few factors like that. But then what really caused us concern on the day shift as we're leading up to this is the special sounding that we released at roughly about 1 p.m. or so early in the afternoon to kind of see how everything was coming together. And we noticed that there were several factors that were coming together a little bit better than what some of the model guidance was showing. And so we really became concerned at that point for the Eastern Panhandle.
So, and then today you turn around and you're getting snow in your general area, correct?
Actually, yes. We have some blowing snow outside right now in our office, and we're sitting. So it's basically the old saying that if you don't like the Panhandle weather, wait 5 minutes. It'll change.
Right. And it's funny because I think I was telling you last week we talked to a forecaster or actually a meteorologist in charge in the Des Moines office about exactly the same thing, that they had a tornado touchdown right outside Des Moines at the airport, and then like within 6 hours it starts snowing. So it's been that kind of November. It's been a very odd November so far.
Indeed it was. The interesting thing from yesterday to today is that when one of our forecasters commented that when they went outside, it didn't feel like your typical outbreak sort of day. Normally you expect to feel that humid air mass. You expect to feel like it's warm out there. Interestingly enough, most of the temperatures in our area yesterday were in the 60s, and maybe a couple reached into the 70s. But and our dew points were only in the 50s. So this was not your typical signature that you would expect to see. But when you looked at the LCLs from yesterday, they were extremely low.
Yeah, you saw the wind shear was absolutely off the charts yesterday, guys. First off, great job yesterday. I mean, you guys absolutely nailed it. Yesterday, I think the big thing and the most impressive thing to me was how those storms were so cyclical. I mean, the Pampa storm, the southern storm, it had a big tornado, large tornado. I mean, and then immediately upon that first one roping out, that second larger one that the EF3 you guys rated touchdown. I mean, it was a very impressive event. As far as the historical significance of this, in terms of tornado days in the last even decade, this has got to rank up there for Amarillo.
So in 2010, we had a pretty active season. So I know I don't know the exact specifics on that, but I know we had several tornadoes that were fairly high in 2010. 2007 was another big year. We had an outbreak in late March 2007. So really within the last 10 years or so, those are the 2 years that really stand out. And before that, of course, we had the Pampa Day back in 1995. So we'll have big years that'll come and go, usually once every 5 years or so, give or take. I mean, they can be back to back, but in the springtime is when that's the really big thing with this event was that with it being late season like that, to have long track strong tornadoes is pretty rare. And I think that's what really stands out with this event. Something you'd expect to have, not every single spring season, but you would tend to have that. If it does happen, it usually almost always happens in our climatological peak for tornadoes, which would be in April and May and early June.
Now
you guys mentioned, I'm sorry, Mark. When you guys mentioned the dew points were in the 50s, I was shocked when I heard that. And I know when we were reading the SPC discussions this morning or yesterday morning, we were, the discussion sounded pretty interesting, that there would be some pockets where the Cape was really high and there would be some isolated spin ups. But like you said, I don't think any of us were expecting what we saw. Mark said all night, and I didn't check, that there was 36 tornadoes that touched down yesterday, not obviously just in Texas, but Kansas as well. So it really was an unprecedented November outbreak. But I was curious, we've talked to several forecasters with the weather offices when there's been a well-advertised, if you will, outbreak where there's additional staffing brought in. Did you guys know yesterday morning that this was something that you were going to have to bring additional staff in? I missed it if you said it in the beginning of this blab, but I was curious if at some point you all changed your trajectory once you started to see the environment becoming more ripe for this outbreak.
I think the biggest thing for us was that when we started to come into the event, we knew that something significant was going to happen. We had expected as early as Friday of last week that the eastern third of our county warning area was going to be affected. So that row of counties, the two counties on the far right-hand side, would be what would be affected. But like Randy said earlier, once the 19Z sounding came in, that's when we said, whoa, this is something highly unusual. The shear is way off the charts. And we actually started seeing supercellular type signatures for a sounding at 19Z, and we were probably setting ourselves up to say, look, this is unprecedented. So we staffed up as best as we could. At one point during the event, we had 9 people on the operations floor plus emergency managers next to us working the ham radios to help get the chasers guided towards those storms. So we did our utmost best. The really change in tone for us came when we heard that there was a large wedge tornado crossing Interstate 40 just east of Amarillo, and all of us just basically said, all hands on deck, let's do it. We knew that something unprecedented was happening.
And I bet your adrenaline's got to be through the roof, because that's when you're using all of your meteorological know-how and everything that you've got, and you've got a service to your community, and you've got a safety issue that I can't imagine. We don't, as you know, here in Florida, get a ton of tornadoes. So Chris is far more adept at chasing tornadoes than we are here. So I always take my hats off to you guys that have to track those on a far more regular basis than we do here. We do get them in Florida, obviously, but I would imagine that that's an incredible career high, for lack of a better word, even though you have a serious issue on hand, to really use everything you have to do your public service.
What happened yesterday is what many of us decided to do when we go into meteorology. We want to save lives, protect property as best as possible.
Yep.
And the event that occurred yesterday, we saw a great professionalism out of all of our forecasters that were working the event. We saw our warning coordination meteorologists personally calling emergency managers, giving them a heads up. I was basically doing whatever advice that I could give as a science and operations officer. And Randy there, he killed it on radar. He and another forecaster, they both worked that radar as hard as they could. And we could not be prouder of how everything turned out.
Yep.
So I know that the room's kind of turning over. We're getting new people. I just wanted to reintroduce our guest real quick, and we only got them for a few more minutes. They got another interview request, but we have Dr. Bieda from the Amarillo National Weather Service, and we have Randy Bowers, a forecaster at the Amarillo Weather Service, joining us this afternoon and talking about yesterday's severe weather events that kind of went through the Amarillo area all the way up into basically Nebraska. They had a few storms up there kick up a little dust as well. But if you could just kind of reiterate for us, and you kind of talked about at the top of the hour, you have people out on the scene in Pampa, which is which was probably the hardest hit area for you guys. What have you guys discovered having been out there and had your site survey so far?
Well, so far, our damage surveyors in the Pampa area, our warning coordinator meteorologist is leading up that team, have found that the second tornado was the one that caused the destruction of the Halliburton plant that was there. Thankfully for us in the Pampa area, that plant was not occupied when the tornado hit. And we were able to officially rate that as an EF3 tornado. That the second tornado that went through Pampa was officially rated as EF3. We are still, our folks are still looking at the first damage path, and we will hopefully have an official damage or an official EF rating for that one this afternoon or by tomorrow.
Oh, how long were the damage paths for some of these tornadoes? I know you mentioned some were on the ground for an hour or more. What's the longest
so far,
damage
we don't
path
have
you guys
official word on that at this time. So once we are able to take all the pictures that were taken on site, what we do is then we plot it on the GIS software that we have here in the office, and then we can get a better idea of how wide the damage path was and how long the damage path was. But suffice it to say that the fact that Pampa got hit by 2 tornadoes, one after the other, and for the city of Pampa, it was about 6:40 to 6:50 when the first tornado hit, and no more than 20 minutes later, about 7:08 p.m. was when the second tornado hit. So the citizens of Pampa must be under shell shock today.
Yeah, but like you had mentioned before, because of your guys' diligent work yesterday, you haven't heard any reports of injuries or fatalities yet, which is absolutely amazing. And I applaud you. You know, all of us, all 3 of us, I'm sure, applaud you again for the work that you guys do. It's ever important, especially in the evening hours, like a lot of these kind of came through. I know, it was so late in the afternoon.
The fact that many of the chasers over there were still out there chasing at night and were able to capture some very good pictures and photos was amazing. That if it wasn't for that information, we probably would have not heard so many reports, and we may not have known whether or not some of these tornadoes were on the ground. And so the chaser community that was out there, the emergency managers and first responders were all key in helping us issue these tornado warnings and helping us stay abreast of the situation so that we could alert the public.
Do you all use those videos? I'm curious, when the chasers are posting on social media, will you guys go back and look at the GIFs and some of these shorter clips and use that data or the video to help correlate with the data that you have? Or I was always curious.
We do use the streaming data that the chasers put out there when we are tracking storms. In fact, Randy could speak more to that when he was issuing his warnings.
Right. We had a couple of the chasers that had their live streaming video. We had that up, and unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to watch every single video, but we try to pick out the ones, the most pressing matters at the time, and we'll try to follow those as close as we can, dedicate somebody to watch that and to watch the Twitter feeds and Facebook and various other media to be able to kind of fill in the gaps and some information we may not have from our spotters that are communicating through ham radio and various other means and calling us direct. It kind of helps to have that to sort of supplement what we have locally here.
Yeah, so basically, when the chasers are out there, if you're able to stream, believe me, weather service forecasters are looking at them and using them.
And what are you guys looking at today as far as in your area? I know that you had a little bit of snow this morning. Or kind of give us an idea what especially the people who are maybe picking up some pieces in Pampa are kind of looking at dealing with.
Well, just before we came on the air, our warning coordination meteorologist said that snow was starting to fall in Pampa. And so we also have winds out there, 25 to 35 miles an hour with gusts up to 45 miles an hour. So it's a very windy day. Temperatures are in the 30s and 40s. Wind chill values are in the 20s. So it's a brisk day out there, especially considering what we just went through yesterday evening.
Yeah, that's rough.
That's
rough. So, hey, I'll go ahead and let you guys go. I know you guys got another interview coming up here in a couple of 3 minutes, but I certainly appreciate it. Again, we have Dr. Bieda from the Amarillo National Weather Service and forecaster Randy Bowers. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And, again, thank you so much for what you guys do. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you guys again in the future.
Thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You too. So yeah, that was great information. Especially considering what that area went through last night. I'm so glad that they were able to come on and kind of give us a. Yeah,
just so you know, Mark, they actually broke the fact that the Pampa tornado was an EF3. That was breaking news. Just first announced on this weather. I'm just letting you know. So that was not out there anywhere. So I actually tweeted that.
News, right?
Breaking something.
That's right.
I know.
And of course, today the
breaking the internet
tornado threat moves south and east, and it continues on. And you guys probably been looking into that. If you want to go ahead and talk about it, I'll go ahead and pull up the app and we can look at a couple areas.
Okay, sounds good. Leslie, you want to take this one?
I'll follow behind you.
Okay, well, that sounds great. Well, you have a line of storms basically working their way through the south right now, through Mississippi, or not Mississippi, but Louisiana, Arkansas, down to Texas, Mississippi, West Tennessee will also be in that threat area later today. Basically, ahead of that line, you have moisture and instability increasing. And so you have the potential for a few spin-ups along that line. A few tornadoes are possible today. It's very typical, messy, kind of convective evolution in the south that you get these, just storms everywhere kind of thing. So it's going to be hard to see tornadoes, obviously, down there. Don't be going out on the front porch going, hey, look at this. There's a tornado coming. Don't do that. That's a terrible idea today. But it's a good day to have a weather radio handy, have MyRadar handy, have any warning source you have handy. To basically stay informed of the weather situation down there. It's just a really good risk of tornadoes today. Rather high. It's high enough for sure for a few tornadoes, and I know there's tornado watches out. So it's just a day to be paying attention.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Mark. And I was just looking at the SPC. I looked at it obviously already today, but it's very similar to what was yesterday. It's just shifted east, but the verbiage from SPC is definitely different. I mean, I'm not reading in their summary quite as a strong wording as we got yesterday. I mean, where they're as excited. They still have it at their enhanced level at a 3, which is obviously 1 to 5. We're kind of in the middle there, a little bit skewed, I guess, to higher maybe if you're looking at what happened yesterday. But straight line wind seems to be more of the issue that's at least coming out of there. But I do remember from the discussion yesterday, the jet level wind was right at 110 knots, and today it's at 100. So the jet stream still kind of really got some good emphasis there, good strength there. It was 110 yesterday. So the rotations there, the jet streams there, and it's just going to be a matter. And the dew points are definitely higher. Mark and I talked about this last night on that blab, that the dew points in that area are obviously going to be markedly higher than they were. Well, not markedly, but somewhat higher than they were in Texas and Kansas and Nebraska last night. But like they said, it was unprecedented. I had no idea that the dew points were in the 50s. You just don't hear about that kind of stuff. It really was an unprecedented event. Yeah. Out in the Panhandle, this is something we look for. I've always considered a dew point of 55 in the Texas Panhandle pretty good, because as you go further west in the higher terrain, you need the dew point. 55 dew point in the Texas Panhandle does a lot more than a 55 dew point, say, in Louisiana. It just goes a lot further. And yesterday, I mean, it was just a classic case of having just enough instability there. I mean, it was 1,000, 1,500 Cape, which is, it's low end, but it's not nothing. Just enough Cape to get a storm going, and the wind shear just did the rest. I mean, the wind shear yesterday was just off the charts. And once you got those storms, it took them a long time to get rooted, a long time to get going. I remember we were setting there north and east of them. They were blazing northeast at 45, 55. So we were, constantly repositioning. And I just remember sitting there thinking, any second, this is going to change. And when it does, there's going to be tornadoes everywhere. And I just remember sitting there, it's going to change. These are going to establish, and this is going to take off. And I remember tweeting about that and all, and just throughout the whole event, trying to at least. Sparse cell cover is terrible, but and it did. And then big tornadoes all through the Texas Panhandle. And again today, and now that you have better moisture and stuff, like I said, it looks like a southern U.S. tornado day. You have good wind shear. You don't have strong instability, but there's more than enough, and you just have all the ingredients there for tornadoes again today.
And all that. So, and actually, Thomas was saying, or his question was, snow day after a tornado. It's a bit odd given that they're fueled by heat, but actually these late year tornadoes like this are fueled by just that. What we're talking about, the shear and the lift. more so than the heating coming from the ground. They're being pushed along by these cold fronts, these massive cold fronts that are coming and basically slamming all these systems together. And just a second ago, you could see, and I'll pull it up here again, you can kind of see on the wind function of the radar, it's very defined today where the winds are. It's like
that low is like 992 millibars. It's really deep. But it's interesting, Mark. I don't know if you can pull up the MyRadar radar. I'm assuming you can, but I'm looking at it now, and I remember yesterday, like a lot like what Chris was just saying. Yesterday at this time, and even until as late as like 6 o'clock last night, it just there was definitely some squalls, but it was not. It just wasn't looking super sexy, which is what I was saying. But and then today, you look at the radar today, and Mark's pulling it up there. Really huge area of embedded rain and thunderstorms that take up a big chunk of geography, which was not like this yesterday. So, but I can, you can see that flow, that really strong southerly flow right over Louisiana, and it looks like the SPC's got it right. I think it's going to be right up along there, along Louisiana, Mississippi. You can see some outflow going across Birmingham. So the jet stream's really going to be a big player today. But you see that big band that doesn't look. That's not where you're going to get tornadoes, but out ahead of that outflow, I think it could be pretty interesting. So we'll see what happens here in the next couple hours. And it's supposed to be a little earlier today, too, this afternoon as opposed to this evening.
Right. And you can still see on the back end of that the snow that's just being dumped out of Colorado and now starting to work its way into western Kansas. And actually, I have some video here from yesterday's start of the whole blizzard, if you will, coming out that way. Pretty good snow. Yep. I don't expect to see that in Orlando anytime soon.
No, thank you. No, thank you. It's clear as you could possibly imagine with nice southwest wind. I think it's in the upper 50s. So very typical post-storm fall air mass in place right now. Dry, cool. Just kind of there. It's nice. It's a very nice day here. And, yesterday, those guys, they said it didn't feel like a typical tornado day. For sure. If you're in the springtime, I'm in a tank top and shorts, it's hot outside. It's humid. But yesterday I was in a hoodie and had shorts on still. I refuse to storm chasing pants. I don't believe in it. But still, I had a hoodie on. It was cold. We had the heater on at various times. That south wind, southeast wind yesterday with the temperature at 65. There was a legit wind chill in the inflow of those storms yesterday.
Right.
It felt like it was
even
in the 50s.
I'm sorry, Mark.
Even in I'm just going to say right now, you're looking at a video from Albuquerque, which is not notoriously known for having snow and blizzard and all that fun stuff. So you're getting this deep cold pattern slamming way down into New Mexico and then coming across. So I'm sure that the winds where you were out in the Panhandle were pretty nippy.
Yeah. It was cold. It was chilly. It was definitely it felt like an early or late season event for sure. Chasing wise, they have a different feel the whole way out there, low sun angle, all that. So, but yeah, it was definitely a cooler type of thing, but the wind shear yesterday, you knew if you got an updraft established. You could see for those who don't, this is a little bit of weather knowledge, but basically the updrafts were incredibly tilted. Almost sideways. And that just tells you there's just insane wind shear in the atmosphere. You could, you see those pictures in the spring where they're just straight up and there's these huge monstrous things. Yesterday, they were just like tilted over like this. Usually in the spring they're like that. Yesterday, it's like that. You could just tell those winds were just pushing those things over, and that just, you could tell. There's just insane.
Well, and Greg asked if there was any injuries associated with the storms yesterday. At the Amarillo office says they had no injuries or deaths with their storms that went through Pampa and then up into the Panhandle. And I was looking a little bit earlier, and I'm not seeing any reports of any deaths anyway. I know that most of the National Weather Service offices are still out looking at the damage and the paths and stuff. So if there were injuries, it'll probably be a little bit later once the storm reports come back in. Usually it's a little slower to get the injury reports than it is the actual fatalities. Unfortunately, because sometimes you don't know somebody went to the hospital because like something hit them or whatever.
Professor Tom was asking if
exactly.
there was what's the risk for I don't know where you are, but I'm assuming he's in that region, Mississippi, Alabama versus.
Yeah.
Where is he?
He's in Huntsville.
Huntsville. Oh, okay, yeah. And it's funny because James Spann, who is in Birmingham, has been talking about the event today, and he's been tweeting about it, and he seems to be more excited about the big time rain, which Mark and I had talked about yesterday. That there are some flash flooding concerns in Alabama and the Gulf Coast region because of this. I mean, it is way wetter today than it was yesterday. It was very squally, straight squalls yesterday, and today it's much more widespread, the rain shield with this cold front that's moving through. But to answer his question, and we talked about it, there is an enhanced risk in that area, according to the SPC, that there is in that region. So it's kind of shifts east as the storm moves east. So it is in that area, Louisiana, Tennessee, maybe the western part of Alabama. But I'm just looking at the live radar now, which Mark has up. And so, you can see some outflow out of Louisiana down by New Orleans, and you can see some starting to fire. It looks a little south near Mobile in Mississippi. And then there's a nice outflow that's way out ahead of the storm system that just moved over Birmingham. You can see it. It says it in between the word Atlanta and Alabama. That's some outflow coming out of that system. So, I think the moisture's there. We'll see if it. That's it. That's the outflow. So we'll see if that. If anything verifies. If it is, it's going to be right in that region, right where Mark's got it, and just ahead of that big squall, that line of rain and thunderstorms.
Yeah, I guess the big thing about this system too, the fact it's so strong, it's just interesting. Yeah. This is the second one in 2 weeks. Just a very active storm power. To have, you getting one of these during a month or two, one or two during a month, that's pretty expected during this time of year. It's not crazy to say that, but getting 2 in 2 weeks, really that's pretty impressive. It really is. So, it's just really, it's an impressive pattern. That's the big thing. I've chased now twice in November. I don't think I've ever done that. That's pretty impressive.
How far did you go yesterday, Chris?
We left at about 1. I guess I can go over my timeline because someone out there may be interested in it. But anyways, we basically, the night before, Sunday night, I really wasn't that fired up about it. Even Monday morning, I wasn't. But by about 11 a.m. on Monday, the skies were clearing in the Texas Panhandle much more so than anticipated, which was bringing instability up. And it just became obvious. It's chase time. So I had to finish up work. And at 1 o'clock, we left Oklahoma City and ended up leaving Interstate 40 because we just went west on Interstate 40 at Groom, Texas, because we saw that storm, the initial Pampa cell that produced the first batch of tornadoes. It was actually taking shape north of Lubbock at the time. And so we kind of, we saw that thing, and I said that, this is the one, we need to start lining up for it. We need to line up, because with those storms moving so fast, chasing them means you kind of got to call your shot, so to speak. You got to say, this one 100 miles away will be here in an hour and a half. We'll be right where we're at. So we need to plan on it and adjust for it. And that's what we did. We got on it. It produced a very brief and weak elephant trunk tornado east of Claude, Texas. And then it lifted up north, produced some more at Groom, and then the big tornado there by Pampa. And then there's a storm just to its south that fired up right at sunset. And that one also lifted pretty much along the same path, it was the strangest thing ever. We're watching the northern storm. It has a tornado on the ground, and then that tornado starts lifting. And I look over because I know the southern storm's over there, and I see a dark spot under the base, and I'm sitting there thinking, that's a tree. I'm sitting here, I'm walking back and forth trying to see, and then I'm like, wait a second, and I pull up the radar, and there's a debris signature on it. I'm like, wait a second, that's a big tornado. And so we saw that one. That tornado actually ended up roping out about 2 miles to our west, and then the new one formed to our north, became a wedge that was probably about a mile wide. And then it narrowed a little bit as it went through the Pampa area. But very impressive scene there. Very impressive tornadoes.
Kind of see here on the animation I pulled up last night on the new feature that we're getting ready to release into the app. You can actually see some of the debris signature here. If you look in there, you can see the little white specks pop up right there in the middle of that where it's rotating. Not so much the white out in front, but that right there in that rotation. What that is that the radar's picking up something that it doesn't quite understand what it is. Usually it's hail, but in this case, because it was that one coming out of Pampa, it actually did have debris with it. So this feature that we're getting ready to release is, it allows you to look at the radar a lot closer, to be able to dig down deeper into it and get different elevations, which, is great for chasing, or just if you're just huge into, weather. It's definitely something that's going to be awesome to do. Now, I noticed Tom had also asked, was last night or this week, is it because of El Nino? And maybe Leslie can go ahead and take that one and kind of run with it a little bit.
Well, I think we've been. I mean, I think we all agree that that's definitely a common thread this season. And I do know when the professor, I don't know if it was the professor or it was the forecaster. I think it was Randy, the forecaster, was saying that they had a big outbreak in 1997, which was I do know was a well-documented strong El Nino year. Right. So I know there's definitely some history, and there's some correlations between the El Ninos and the fact that we're talking about milder winters and milder falls, and we're talking about, like Chris said, dew point. I mean, I didn't know that about the Texas Panhandle. Dew points in the 50s in Florida is, it's winter for us. So.
It's dry.
So it's getting on with MyRadar, joining the team. It's definitely you have to remember, you have to change your lens, because the weather here in the Southeast is markedly different than what you guys with the plains and Tornado Alley chase to. So anyway, I get off the point, but my point was that, it's longer, we've got temperatures that are staying warmer longer because of the El Nino. And I think there is correlations, and I think there's evidence to that. And the jet stream is stronger in an El Nino pattern, and the Gulf moisture is more ample. It's because of the level winds that are coming out of the ITZ zone. So I think that there's definitely hard evidence there. And I was curious, I'll be curious to see how this winter plays out. I certainly hope it's not going to be a severe weather event for the country, but it's been interesting so far, and we're not even officially in winter yet. Yeah.
And if you remember last night, I was telling you that I had emailed Greg Carbon over to SPC and asked him a few questions. And one of the questions I did ask him was, is this a possible El Nino component? And he basically just said exactly what you said about, the fact that, in comparison to normal November, December tornado watch days during the warm versus cool phase, it's showing that the actual cool phase years have more tornado watch days. And that's kind of what we're going through this year. And hopefully, and he did say he was certainly happy to come on and talk to us about, what goes into their decision making as well when they're putting out the mesoscale forecast and all that. But it was great that he was able to answer back quickly and kind of give us some information on that. So if you guys have any questions, by all means, jump in there and ask a question. Gregory,
there's a couple of questions for Chris over in the in the feed. One's from Shadow.
Bobby has a question.
When you're chasing, Chris, how do you document? Whoops, it keeps moving. How do you document and report? How many entities do you report to?
Okay. Basically, Bobby, the best way to answer that is that, like last night, we tend to just post, I use Vine, actually. I've rediscovered Vine in the last month. I don't know how I lost this, but it's very quick and simple. It's 140 characters. You get a nice video clip, and you can actually show what you're seeing and report it with an @reply to the National Weather Service. And I've actually chosen that as my preferable reporting method because it's quick, it's easy, it's fast, and I know they have a guy on staff that sees that. And if you tweet to that, like NWS Amarillo, they're going to then pass along, hey, got a tweet video of a tornado north of Pampa, very large, looks like. You make sure you have that in the warning, So that's one way we do it. The other way is with streaming video. I know that's something we're working on here at MyRadar, getting that really ramped up for 2016. So that's something we'll be working on. But yeah, streaming video will be something else because the National Weather Service meteorologists, they use those streams just religiously. I know that, and that was the second time in 2 weeks we've had a National Weather Service meteorologist say they were watching streams to issue warnings. So I mean that's also something incredible. They do as a uniform thing. Yeah, so in terms of what chasers do, that's really the two best ways to report is both via social media directly to the National Weather Service and also to stream video, because the National Weather Service will see that. And it's just and the system's working. I mean, yes, last night again, big tornadoes. Now, granted, they did go through rather unpopulated areas, but they did hit structures, and no deaths, no fatalities, no injuries. Very successful day for the warning system.
And I assume your bind is just Tornado Titans as well. They can find you. Just Tornado Titan. Yeah, and honestly, I don't really worry about a following on there. I just use it as a tool for Twitter, because it's just so. Again, that's just so easy. If you're a storm chaser out there and wondering, how can I best get reports out? Set Vine up, set it up with all your social accounts to share instantly, and then just report what you see. What, when, where, all that, and then and with a reply to the National Weather Service office. If you're going to be chasing in like the Amarillo office, you can actually copy it at NWS Amarillo, so you can then just paste it in there very quickly. And that's just a simple way to report. You want to follow Tornado Titans on Twitter and Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. You get, like last night, I was up until 2 a.m. Making sure that updates were happening. Any video we got from chasers that we had out there, or any reports we had, were getting put out in the various sources, and also putting like if we had something come up on the radar, trying to get it up in there so that people could see and be aware. And then also follow us on Blab, because last night we did like a special Blab based on just this event. So click on up here, one on these sides. And say, hey, yeah, we're going to follow you guys, because we want to get the information out as quick as possible. I'm sorry, Leslie, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Chris, when you tweet to the weather offices, do they ever respond back to you guys to know that they've used your tweet as a source? I mean, do you ever get that confirmation from them?
Yep. Yeah, a couple of times, even Amarillo, not last night, but earlier this year, I actually tweeted them just a picture. I said, incredible HP supercell structure. I don't know what I said. I think it was something like that. Possible tornado embedded in the rain. Can't verify at NWS Amarillo. And they tweeted back, thanks for the report.
And speaking of photos, Chris was kind enough to share some photos from his chase yesterday. And I don't know if when we kind of go through some of these, and you can kind of just give us a brief of what's going on in each one. I know some of them from Eugene as well, which he wasn't chasing with you yesterday, right?
No, actually, the Titans had a great coverage yesterday. We had Eugene up in Kansas covering those tornadoes. He documented 9 total tornadoes in Kansas yesterday. So this is a shot looking. That first one was a shot looking up US 83 near Garden City. This is the prime example. See how that updraft is just tilted over. I mean, that's just, you can just tell that the wind shear yesterday was just insane. In the spring, you'd see that a little bit more vertical with less shear and more instability. But, man, those things were just tilted over sideways, basically, which was just incredible to see. That was looking north at Garden City, or near Garden City, Kansas yesterday. That's his first tornado of the day, actually. I believe it was like near 3 or 4 o'clock near Moscow, Kansas, one of the first cells that went up there. And I'm almost certain dew points were in the very low 50s up there at the time. I mean, that just tells you how strong the wind shear was to even get tornadoes in those little dew points. But yeah, it wasn't fully condensed because of that. And then this is actually quarter-sized hail covering the road near Garden City from Eugene. So it looks like it's been snowing, but that's how. Basically, near that upper low, those storms were very efficient hail producers because the freezing level was so low. So they weren't actually producing a lot of big hail. They were producing a whole lot of little hail. And you get that during the cool season. A lot of times you get something like this where you get the hail covering the road because there's just so much falling. It's just very impressive to see that. And this is that Moscow storm before the tornado. That's the wall cloud. Eugene actually, he expressed regret later because he actually got too close at this point and played catch up the rest of the day, and he wasn't able to get many good pictures of the tornadoes he saw. And so here's a tornado we actually saw. This was the Pampa storm, the northern storm when it first touched down with the first big Pampa tornado, basically. That's just right when it first touched down. Every lightning strike, it looked completely different. So it was obviously a strong tornado, very strong tornado. So, and then, you saw it just got bigger, it kept growing. A lot of chasers will report that as a wedge tornado. It's not really a wedge. That's actually more of a fat stovepipe. A wedge has got to be twice, has to be bigger than it is tall. That's not actually the case. That's actually more of a fat stovepipe. And this is actually on the southern storm. This was when there was a cone tornado. Yeah, right there. That's when it was starting to rope out and it was moving through that wind farm. And I'm telling you, the most eerie thing I think I've ever seen on a storm chase, you could actually see that tornado with your naked eye. You could see it out there a mile or so away. But with the wind blowing, you couldn't actually hear it. So it's like this dark snake kind of thing, just moving through silently, and you could just see it just skirting across the ground and moving amongst the windmills and such. And I'm sitting here, you can hear it in the video I actually posted. You can say, "Look at that! It's moving through the wind farm." And I was just in disbelief because I was like, "Holy crap! There's a tornado a mile from us." It sounds
like a really bad line from Sharknado 4, by the way.
Yeah, I know, really is. And that's just is incredible. And this is that tornado we saw a second ago, the first one, and that's actually hit something that exploded right there. That's actually an explosion, because I don't think that's a power flash. A power flash would be green. I think it actually literally hit like a propane tank or something that exploded, and that's eliminated the tornado right there. Which night tornadoes, you get that. And here's the big EF3 there by Pampa. This thing, right before we took this picture, we were trying to drive up. We saw it forming on one side of a river bottom. We had to go through the river bottom and back up, which took 5 minutes. So as we were driving toward it, it was a mile wide, and then it started shrinking a little bit into this fat stovepipe. Again, not a wedge, but a fat stovepipe is what I would call it. And or a fat cone, whichever you prefer. And it's just the motion on this as it was moving through in front of those lights. I mean, clearly looked on the strong end to violent for sure. I mean, very incredible motion for sure. And this is another one that we posted that has that went a little bit viral, of a power flash actually illuminating that same tornado just a few minutes later. And it was just a powerful night, powerful tornadoes. You don't expect this in November for sure. I know we were talking about it in the newsroom. There hasn't been big tornado events in November, and I'm a big believer in climatology in that regard, that you will get events like yesterday that defy everything in history, right. And then now you have a new reference point. But for the most part, if it hasn't happened very often, there's a reason for it. But yesterday things just came together. I mean, like I said, as of morning, it looked like you were still going to get a line and maybe some supercells embedded and maybe a couple tornadoes, a couple which would have been strong given the shear. But what ended up happening is you had the panhandle just completely clear out. You were kind of expecting clouds to kind of hang on a little bit longer, but it just cleared out by noon. Just crisp, clear blue skies. And that just set the stage. That allowed what we call the lapse rate, which is basically temperatures which fall with height, to steepen, which allowed instability to increase, which in turn, thanks to that, then supercells were able to be stronger. There were more of them able to get going. And then the wind shear took over from that point. Once you get a supercell go up, a supercell's already spinning. And once it went up, at that point, the wind shear took over. The thing was just spinning, and they were moving so fast.
We were watching these storms. And also talking to you, both on Blab and text. And just as I watch one spin up, there would be another one spin up right behind it, and they just they were clipping along 40 miles an hour. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that they had this front boundary pushing it from the behind. Thomas is asking, and we'll go back to Greg's question as well, but Thomas is asking on power flash, does that mean that transverse sparks due to destruction? Yep, pretty much.
Yeah. It's basically, it's when the transformer literally blows up. I mean, it's just, it's what happens. That's when that's actually at night as a storm chase, a tornado is doing some damage because it's hitting at least power lines. So yeah, that's so like if you're reporting,
it's really tornado. And as a older chaser who hasn't done it for a couple of years, but still, I mean, I still have memories. It's a very eerie feeling when you get, that it's out there, and then you do see the flash, and especially when you see multiple flashes. And Chris can attest to this too, because like the Moore tornado, it's like it's at night, it's there, you just don't know exactly how bad it is, and then all of a sudden it's just. There's flash after flash after flash, and all you can think about is all the people that are possible in the path of that. It becomes very concerning, and I'm sure that when you saw that flash last night, the first thing went through your mind was like, hopefully nobody's in that immediate area.
Yeah, the big thing we had a pretty good idea because it looked like it passed south and east of town. So, and I know that area pretty well. So I know there's a few homes out there, and so you got that sick feeling in your stomach. But at the same time, I mean, these things had been warned for a while. This is an area that is very used to this. So I had good confidence that people were in their shelters. I just felt like, to me, I had a really good gut feeling about last night as far as like how prepared people were and such. And I mean, it's just ecstatic to hear that people, no deaths, no fatalities. That's incredible.
Would this actually have been the storm that you got that photo from? It was around 6:50 or so, I guess. Yeah. Yep. That would be that's the southern storm, and actually at the very first frame, that's the northern storm. So that's what I'm calling. I'm calling them a northern storm and southern storm. And so that first big tornado we saw was from the northern storm. Then the southern storm produced that cone to rope, which was actually a lot bigger as it was off to our west, and then it produced the big Pampa tornado. And the Pampa tornado, actually, I forgot to mention this to those guys. I'll send them an email, but there was at least one satellite tornado we saw off of that, which basically means a tornado, an additional tornado in addition to the big tornado. So basically, it was just ahead of it. It was a separate tornado entirely. But yeah.
That's what I've been meaning to ask Chris, because there was one in Kismet, and I don't know where that is.
Kansas, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I knew it was in Kansas, but I didn't know
I think
if one of his guys was on it. But we were watching the one in Kismet, and that's the one that also looked like it had some type of, I couldn't tell if it was a scud cloud because it was dark, or like you said, maybe it was another spin up. But it definitely, that's not the one I'm talking about. You've got up there.
No.
But
This is the Pampa. This is a different angle from the Pampa stuff. I'm just showing what we got.
But the Kismet one was, I think was, I don't know if we can find it, but I don't think you rolled on that one though, did you? It looked definitely like a wedge. It was big.
I'm pretty sure. Here, let me look that up on the map really quick. I'm pretty sure that's the storm Eugene was on, but I'm going to look this up before I say this so I don't completely misrepresent the whole situation.
There was a YouTube clip that Mark found that we ran, but the guy had some weird orchestra music behind it, but it was the Kismet one, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, who takes the time to put orchestra music behind their chase vehicle or videos that soon after it happened?
So
but whatever,
weird.
Yeah, that's way too soon, guys. Way too soon. Yeah, I think that it's possible that was the same storm Eugene was on at dark. When he left his storm, I don't know which one it was. He was reporting to me. He's not a guy who likes chasing at night, a little bit more dangerous, that sort of thing. I'm young, fearless, etc. So whatever. But he told me that there was a large tornado, looked to be a wedge, and then there was a cone tornado just off of it. So that could have been the same one.
Mark, are you trying to pull it up on YouTube?
He was.
No, I was actually pulling up this other the video that Chris did.
Oh.
And I think I started a little late there. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. Everything before that's kind of an introduction, just has Brett talking, etc., which is a-okay. So we don't want to see Brett. We don't want to see the video.
Interwebs is not one to agree right now for some reason. So.
Yeah. The Facebook video player, and as a guy who distributes content, the Facebook video player is frustrating but amazing at the same time because the reach you get. But it's frustrating because there are moments where it just doesn't.
They're putting way too much into the 360-degree video, which I can't wait to get a tornado on. By the way, so.
Hey, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to stand right in the middle of it, just like the tornado last night. I'm just going to do it. Hopefully it has night vision though, right?
Exactly.
So tornadoes aren't dangerous. No one died from them last night. Obviously, you can do that. It's no problem.
Oh, here we go. I found the Kismet.
Well, and I found another one too.
Let's
man, everyone's like finding stuff.
This one.
I found my Conjure Words card. That counts for something.
Oh yeah,
just saying.
Not the guy with the weird music.
Yeah, this one's got the bad music, but whatever.
This one doesn't. I just put it in our feed.
Okay.
Oh no, that guy. I don't know if it's that guy or not, but it definitely looks like a wedge in that there's a. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I think.
Yeah.
A definite wedge tornado there. And
that's gonna be so scary to see. I'm sorry, but I was telling you, we were talking about this last night, and you would know better than we would. But I would be terrified if you're pitch black and then in the flash of lightning you see this massive wedge in front of you and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the big thing is, and I chase differently at night than I do during the day for sure too, but I tend to stay out from underneath the base at night because bad things can happen because you can't, I mean, if you're underneath the base, I mean, the Greensburg tornado from 2007 is a prime example. There's a picture out there. I've yet to be able to find it, but I remember it vividly of the actual big wedge and then 2 or 3 cone tornadoes, satellites off the edge of it. And I mean, if you're chasing that and you're trying to get close to it at night, which I mean, I don't know why you would anyways, because the pictures and video aren't that great. But anyways, you're trying to do that, and all of a sudden the cone tornado comes and takes you out.
We were just talking about that last night, actually. So because that was one of the ones that I was still living out in Kansas and ended up on actually for NBC. And I was telling Leslie, you know, coming over, we popped over a hill coming into Greensburg, and same thing, you know. We saw flashes in the distance before we ever saw the wedge, and then of course you saw the wedge, and they saw a bunch of satellite tornadoes. And you know, instantly it's just we just stopped. I mean, and both myself and the audio guy that was with me. I mean, we neither one said anything for 10 minutes because it's just like, you know, okay. And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, one, which way is it moving? Is it moving east west? Is it moving north south? You know, south north. You know, but you know, it was his first tornado. So he was really like, holy shit. I mean, you know, just like,
oh, no.
So, yeah. So we stayed a long ways away from the
not a good one to start.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And it was such a massive event anyway. You know, if you don't know, Greensburg's basically wiped off the map at that point. So. Yeah.
Yeah, that was me and Brett were talking about that one on the way back, just how powerful that tornado was, just to have done that over such a wide swath. You know, usually like the Moore tornado in 2013 in Oklahoma was, you know, there's the actual hardcore damage was very, very narrow. And there was a lot of damage on the outside of that. But as far as total destruction, it was actually just a very narrow path. But the Greensburg, it was just the whole thing. And that's just that's what makes that tornado. I mean, if there was a power scale for that, it would be up. It would
Paul,
be
you're
there,
right.
But,
you know,
go ahead.
I understand what you're saying. I feel for rookies too when they go out and see their first. You know, most of them don't happen across the massive F5. That's, you know, a life ender. You know, whereas like I said, the audio guy who was with me, that just happened to be with me. But you know, I know from experience, having taken other people, and Chris can say the same thing, taking other people out and seeing their faces the first time they see a larger event. You know, during the daytime, it's more that adrenaline and excitement. At nighttime, it's just kind of, it gets very eerie and frightening after a while because you just.
Here's the exact face people make.
And then it goes from that.
That's literally it every time.
And then,
I mean, yeah, exactly. So the very first face you make, it's that wide open, like, wow, there's a lot of things moving around. I mean, you just see the video of the tornado, but this is actually,
and my favorite
there's
too
a
is
lot
like,
of stuff
you know,
going on
you get
here.
that really good inflow right before, and people are like, what was that?
Yeah.
Is that the tornado? It's like, no, hang on a second.
Yeah. Well, I mean, me being the prankster I am, and I'll share a little bit of a lighter moment for sure. This last season, I had a guest with us, and there was a moment like that where we got a really strong gust of, it was the RFD actually, same. But, you know, we're sitting there, we're filming a tornado, RFD hits us. They're like, they're sitting there filming, and I just yell, "Oh my gosh, it's a tornado expanding on us! Everybody to the car!" And I mean, left the camera and just took off running, and I'm just rolling. I mean, I'm rolling right now. So that was a friend of mine, so I could do that and get away
Free
with it.
camera, sucker.
That was a lot of fun.
Right?
So I'm pretty sure that 40 time was about 4.3, by the way, too. Could play it for the New York Jets. They probably need them.
So yeah, if you're just now coming into the room, we're talking about the severe weather that has going on yesterday and also a little bit today. I'm Mark, the operations manager for MyRadar. We are a mobile weather app that is a free download to you, and you can check out the weather around you, forecast, blah blah blah. We have Leslie Hudson, who is our beautiful meteorologist here on staff at MyRadar, and Chris Sander from Tornado Titans, who was actually out yesterday chasing the tornadoes and getting all up in this business. And earlier we had Dr. Bieda and Randy Bauer from Amarillo National Weather Service came on and talked to us about the Pampa tornado, which not necessarily it's the only tornado because there was like 38 of them yesterday, but it was one that happened to be where Chris was at, and two, the fact that it was pretty well captured by multiple sources made it a good jumping off point for us to talk about. And actually, I'll show you some video here from our news section of our app, which is a per station view where you can actually go in and pick the station to look closer into the storms. And this is the Pampa tornado. You can see on the front end at the very top, that's the first tornado that kind of came through. And then obviously down there at the bottom, you see the big curl. That's the second one that came through. And was this, the second one was the F3? Is that what he said?
Yeah. Basically, like as it passes there by Pampa, that's when the EF3 was on the ground. So, let's just talk about these features for a second, Mark, because first off, I know there's some storm chasers who watch this either now or recorded. Big thing I want to point out with MyRadar and this new feature is that Google Maps is already overlaid. So you already have a navigational device. You can already see the roads as you're navigating around the storm. That's a big help. I mean that's incredible. And then you have the per station radar, high quality. You have velocity. For me, not much else I need. So you're getting pretty close to everything you need right there, and it's just there's a lot of nice stuff. I've gotten a chance to preview it. I think I get another chance to preview.
I think they're setting all that up. They pushed it out to me last night so I could get some recordings of this event out. But right now I'm showing you this is like every station in the United States. So wow, where's the United States? It's underneath all those radar stations. But then if you zoom down, like right now we can zoom down here and look in the New Orleans station and start kind of looking at the different stations in that area, what's happening. So it's really great if you're a super weather geek or if you're obviously a chaser. That's what you want. You want to be able to dig down and have different elevations. You see over here on the right hand side of the screen, it says E1. That's the lowest elevation, and we have different elevations we can flip through. We can flip through the E2 and the E3 elevations. Unfortunately, they don't really give because each station's different. We don't necessarily know if it's the point or we know it starts at 0.5, but is it 1.2? Is it 2.4? Where does it go from there? Each station's different, unfortunately. So we were having a big conversation about that yesterday, but I'll bring up here. I think this is Alexandria, maybe.
Yeah. I think it's Alexandria. POE. I think it's Alexandria. Either way, it's the one right in front of the line there.
Right, exactly. And so you can see, and you can really dig down and get some good detail on the storms, and like Chris was saying, you can bring up the velocity and see. I mean, right now you can actually see,
huge. Right,
exactly, and you can see where see that outflow out in front of it with the velocity, and then the mass behind it. So, so this will be something great, especially for, like I said, guys who are super into weather, chasers, and really for me personally, I will use it every day for just checking things out, because it does give us a little bit better look into what's happening generally around us.
It's for weather pros, right? Weather pros.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think the interesting when we get some feedback once this gets pushed out is what the chasers think and pilots and weather geeks, like you said, that are going to be using this. What I hope we're not going to see is a bunch of amateurs that think now that they've got some velocity on their phone that they can, go out and tweet and say, hey, look, there's rotation. Because really, you've got, unless you know how to look at gate to gate velocity, you don't really know what you're looking at. Just because the red butts up to the green doesn't mean that there's necessarily rotation there, but it means there are inbound and outbound winds that are coming out of different radar sites. So,
exactly.
I hope that people are, I think the moniker that the company has put on there, that it's a Pro Pack, I think is a smart name, and I know that it'll be a resource for everybody. But and we'll see how I think it's a tremendous asset to this app, but and we'll see how people respond to it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Certainly the chasers will love it.
No, definitely. So we're getting kind of close to wrapping up at least our general chat, and then we'll stick around and talk to you guys a little bit longer, but that way we're not going too crazy on the recording. But before we get out here, I know Greg did ask a question. I wanted to go ahead and answer that for him. He's asking that he has heard that El Nino is predicted to peak in the midwinter. Have we heard anything different?
That's true. It does. It's peaking in December, and then it starts to wane after that. So, but it's not like it's like the hurricane season. So it takes weeks. Technically, if you had to pinpoint a day that hurricane season peaks, it depends on the calendar year, but it's usually September 9 to September 11. Usually it's on the 10th. But then we go hurricane season for another 6 weeks. So El Nino is the same thing. It peaks. It should be peaking in mid-December and should start to trail off after that. But it's a slow progression down to the low end of an El Nino season. So that is true. We do peak in December.
That's true. All right. So to basically wrap it up today, be weather aware if you're in Texas, basically from say Laredo, and really I'll pull up the app again here so you can see it. The mass of weather moving across the country is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's nice.
The Northwest,
not nice, but
Northwest is getting a good chunk of rain. You can see this huge mass of snow coming off that blizzard conditions that were hammered Denver yesterday, and still chance for severe storms to come off the front end of this line that's moving through the mid South, I guess is what they would call it, right? Hey, people are sending me messages. Don't do that. The mid South. So basically, throughout the afternoon and into the evening, you want to make sure that you're weather aware. So whip open the MyRadar app or grab your weather radar radio and make sure you're paying attention to what's happening.
Before we stop recording, I see some right near Beaumont, Texas. I see some interesting out ahead of this primary front that looks pretty interesting. So I'm wondering if we're starting to see the very beginnings of down by Galveston too. You can kind of see a line trying to get its act together. So we'll see.
Yep. You can see it right there, getting ready to blow up right there.
There's a ton of southerly winds coming out ahead of that. So
exactly,
it's big time.
So like I said, we're going to stick around for a little bit. We're just going to go ahead and stop this recording because we don't want to go way over time. But for MyRadar, I am Mark, the operations manager.
Some stranger just walked by.
Yeah, that was Wendy. She works here.
I didn't see. No, I didn't see. I didn't see who it was. Oh, there she is.
Hi, Wendy.
I do like with the door open though, Mark, because you get to see our cool big screen of the app back there behind you and our 3D printer. I think that looks very cool.
I just forgot to close the door. But we have. I want to thank Chris Sander, as always, from Tornado Titans for coming and joining us, and then Leslie Hudson, who has no choice because we pay her to show up. So,
well, I think Chris gets paid too.
And then, of course, I also want to say thank you to the guys from Amarillo, Dr. Bieda and Randy Bauer from the National Weather Service out there. And again, I don't know if they'll watch this later or not, but if their bosses watch it, hey, you know what? Those guys deserve some cookies because that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
They were able to be on top of those storms as such and have no injuries or fatalities from the storms that went through the Amarillo area last night. And that goes out to every National Weather Service office in America. I mean, they all work hard to keep us safe.
They do. I love the weather office. They're the best.
Exactly. All right. So we'll stick around afterwards and chat with you. But for right now, it's peace out.